Hello everyone, welcome to another monthly Patreon voted review. This month's selection is Dragon Blaze by Psikyo. Now I'm very excited to have another chance to talk about Psikyo here on the channel because I am a big fan of the developer. Despite me mostly being stuck complaining about the input lag of the Nintendo Switch ports, I do actually like these games. With that being said though, let me begin by complaining about the input lag on the Nintendo Switch port of Dragon Blaze. So for those not in the know, a few years ago, I rather infamously wrote a review for Nintendo Life of the Psikyo collections on the Nintendo Switch, and I gave them low review scores. Unlike every other reviewer on the planet, I gave them a much lower score because I recognized that the ports just are not good. They're not that accurate. They're completely bare bones with no stage select or save state, and then worst of all is the input lag, which is 6 or 7 frames depending on the game, as compared to the 2 frames of input lag that you natively get on the PCB. And funny enough, despite the backlash against my review and it pretty much ending my career as a freelance contributor to gaming websites like Nintendo Life, City Connection actually did end up addressing my critiques when they did the Steam ports of these games. So, as it stands right now, the Nintendo Switch ports of the Psikyo games are just no good. They're incredibly laggy, but if you get them on the PS4, the input lag is reduced. It's around 4 frames last I checked. And then if you get them on the PC, on Steam, and you get all the settings just right, you can get it down to 3 frames, which is much, much better than 6 or 7 frames. So as far as getting access to these games, I recommend playing them on Steam or on the PS4. But really, just between us, you should be emulating them on either MAME or RetroArch, not only because the input lag is better, but also because you get save states. And the thing about Psikyo games is that they are extremely memorization heavy, and so not having save states, in my opinion, really hurts these ports. Even if the input lag is better on Steam, you still need some sort of training features, so pretty much play them on emulator is what I'm saying. You can buy them on Steam, but play them on emulator. So with all that out of the way, let's talk some Psikyo, let's talk some Dragon Blaze. The thing that I absolutely love about Dragon Blaze was the way I was first introduced to the game. On the very podcast on this channel, one of the very first episodes, a really cool guest, EX Mosquito, and I were discussing Psikyo games, and up to that point, I'd only played Strikers 1945 and Strikers 1945 2, and I was going on and on about how much I loved Cave, and I'm a big Cave fan, obviously. And he said, well, you should definitely check out Dragon Blaze, because Dragon Blaze is like Psikyo's version of a Cave game. And that comparison has really stuck with me over all these years, and I think it's a very accurate assessment of Dragon Blaze. It's still at its core a very Psikyo game, but you can definitely tell there is some Cave influence going on beyond just the bullets being pink. So let's talk about the Psikyo formula, and then we'll talk about Dragon Blaze specifically. So the Psikyo formula I'm absolutely in love with, and it goes something like this. The first 4 stages of the game are all randomly shuffling between different playthroughs. So whenever you start a credit, you're going to get one of the first 4 stages, and they're going to be shuffled just randomly. And then the order of appearance of the stages determines their difficulty. The most notorious example of this is in Gunbird, the train stage. You want to get the train stage right up front because the 4th version of the train stage is absolutely batshit crazy, and you don't want to deal with that. So you always want to try and reshuffle your credit until you get the train stage up front. And with Dragon Blaze, I'm sure this pans out the exact same way. I played a bunch of Dragon Blaze for this review, but no stage particularly stood out to me as being like extremely bad to get at the end. Though I'm sure if you're going for score runs or survival runs and you really, really know the game well, like all other Psikyo games, I'm sure there is an optimal stage order that you're going to be trying for or hoping for at the very least. So that's step 1 of the Psikyo formula. Step 2 of the Psikyo formula is the bullet patterns of the games and the way these bullet patterns work. Now, I would absolutely say that Psikyo games are Danmaku. They are bullet hell, but they are different than Toho, and they're different than Cave. And the way they work is kind of hard to describe, but rather than having these sort of slow walls of bullets that come in and they sort of press you in and you have to slip through the cracks like you do in Toho, and to some degree the way you do in Cave, Psikyo are much more focused on macro dodging around a lot of patterns. But unlike something like Raiden, which have fast moving aimed patterns, what Psikyo will also do is have these sort of scattered, unaimed waves that just kind of float through the stage. And so it is bullet hell in that you have to weave through these crazy little patterns, but unlike a lot of bullet hell, it's actually much more macro dodging oriented, and it's all about tapping and timing and getting around things. And usually if you're trying to micro through the patterns, you're going to be dead in 1 second, but it does come up from time to time. It's a very hard balance to explain, but once you play a Psikyo game, it's absolutely trademark. But with Dragon Blaze specifically, they kind of change it up a little bit and make it a little bit more cave. So there is more micro dodging in this one. The bullet patterns, those unfocused waves, are a little slower than usual. And then on top of that, your hitbox does seem smaller and more normal than most other Psikyo hitboxes. Psikyo hitboxes can drive me up the goddamn wall. Gunbird 1 is a huge example of this. I love Gunbird 1, but that hitbox is one of the worst hitboxes in all of shmups because it's like her head is the hitbox. It's like really forward facing. And so if you're not used to that, you're just going to be headbutting bullets all day long. They bring it back to the center in Gunbird 2 and in Dragon Blaze. I think they got a bit of an idea of cave on how to do hitboxes by that point, but some of those early Psikyo hitboxes are absolutely crazy. So as far as the hitboxes and the bullet patterns, it definitely feels like Psikyo are trending a little bit more in the cave direction. It reminds me a lot of like a Loop 2 cave game, Loop 2 Donanpachi, something like that. Which brings us to step 3 of the Psikyo game design, the scoring systems. So Psikyo scoring systems are among my favorites because they're just so straightforward and focused. It's like you are doing this one thing and you are doing it well, but it really ties into the survival gameplay extremely closely. When you play a Psikyo game, when you're playing it correctly for survival, you're usually doing a lot of cool stuff that feeds into the scoring as well. And it's very elegant. And it's one of those games that may seem like it doesn't have much score play on paper. There's a ton of Psikyo score play. People love to play Psikyo games for score because it's just so satisfyingly simple and it's so well done. And Dragon Blaze, in my opinion, is one of Psikyo's best scoring systems, and we'll talk about that more specifically later on. Before we get to that, let's talk about what separates Dragon Blaze from its peers, because we've established, okay, this is the Psikyo formula. Dragon Blaze follows it, but where's the variation? First of all, the dragon mounting system is really cool, and it's a system I would love to see appear in more shmups. I'm surprised we haven't seen it happen more. It's so simple, but so awesome. So the way it works is you fly around on your mount, then you hit the C button, and you fling your dragon out, and your dragon does this melee attack, but it does more than that. So it comes out, does the melee attack, and then you unmount from the dragon, and you fly independently of it, and it just chills like a Gradius option right where you left it. And then if you hit the C button again, it returns to you. It's such a cool mechanic because it's so versatile. You can use it in all these crazy ways. First of all, it's like the main way you score because you just attack things with the dragon. They drop gold coins, and if you watch score play, like that's what they're doing all the time, is just attacking stuff with the dragon. And then on top of that, when you're in the boss fights, what happens is there's this moment in the boss fight called the technical bonus, which is there's this brief moment of time, usually around the second phase, where the boss shows the weak point. And if you drag and attack the weak point, it blows up and insta-kills the boss. It's just really, really cool, especially because Psikyo bosses are such nasty bastards. Like, Psikyo bosses are among some of the meanest in the genre. So getting the chance to hit their weak point and insta-killing them, super satisfying. But on top of just being able to attack things with the dragon, you also can use it to sort of screen control at times, because you can launch your dragon, have it cover a certain sector of the screen, and then in your little independent rider mode, you're flying around and shooting things. That being said, when you're all by yourself without your dragon, you have a little pea shooter, you're not doing a whole lot of damage, but during certain popcorn sections and stuff like that, it can be very useful. The dragon is just such a cool, iconic mechanic, and one of my favorites in all of Psikyo, and I think is what really makes this game special, is that dragon mechanic. Then on top of that, you have the magical attack, as I mentioned before, and that's very, very similar to other Psikyo games with like the charge shots and the way those work. But what is cool about the magical attack is it has two different versions. You have one version when you're on the dragon, and that's the more standard version that you would see across other Psikyo games. And then you have another version when the dragon is disconnected from you. And coincidentally enough, this version seems to be really useful for point blanking bosses. I mean, I don't know. It could be an accident, but it seems like Psikyo is like, I gotcha. And I really like that additional attack with the magic system because it does add in some fun routing options where you're either saving it up through the stage or you're saving it up against bosses or bigger enemies. Very cool. And then of course you have your bomb, and like most other Psikyo games, not all bombs are created equal. Like Quaid has a bitchin' bomb that's like this full screen clear. You can fly around, you can attack stuff with your dragon while the bomb's going off. And then you've got Ian's bomb, which barely covers anything. It might seem to do a lot of damage, but it doesn't seem that good of a bomb to me. So depending on the character and the balance, you know, your bomb will be either amazing or crappy. And one bit of advice is, even though this is on paper a 3-button game, I consider it a 4-button game. And so the way you work is you map one button to your shot, then you map another additional button to your turbo shot. So you have your shot, and then you have that button again as the turbo, then you have the third button as the bomb, and then the fourth button as the dragon attack. I really recommend that because if you just hold down the shot, you will actually get a rapid fire, but it will just automatically fire your magic off instead of being able to save it up. So I definitely recommend having a dedicated auto fire button. And now let's talk about the 4 different characters. And again, it seems like this is a very polished Psikyo release because in some Psikyo games, some ships are just hella good and some ships are absolutely crap. It seems like in Dragon Blaze, they're all pretty solid. I looked at the world record scores. They're all sort of in a pretty close range together. And I wasn't surprised to see which ones seem to be better for scoring. So the first character is Quaid, hella good character, really nice movement, really nice damage output, really nice bomb attack, really nice dragon attack. Really his only drawback is that he has kind of a narrow range of fire. Outside of that, Quaid seems hella good, and he actually has the highest score on the leaderboard, so he's probably the best character of the game. After that, you get Sanya, something like that. She's a more balanced all-around character, but her biggest drawback though is her dragon attack by far, because even though her dragon attack looks good and you can launch it and it's good on launch, it takes forever to return. It takes a long time to get her dragon back. And that is a problem because launching and relaunching your dragon over and over and over is really good for score, and it's really good for survival. It's just really good to do overall. So not being able to do that as effectively is definitely her biggest drawback, but her bomb's solid, her special attacks are solid, her damage output seems pretty good. It's just not being able to relaunch her dragon that seems to be the biggest issue. Then the third character, Slow Dragon guy. His big problem is his damage output as far as his shot is kind of iffy because he has this nice wide range shot, but Psikyo games aren't like Cave games, where in Cave having a big wide shot is usually hella good because you have all this popcorn enemy and screen coverage is really important. In Psikyo, that's not nearly as important, I don't think, because there just isn't as much popcorn, and the popcorn themselves actually have quite a bit of HP. But that's not even his worst feature. The worst aspect of this character is absolutely his movement speed. This man is a turtle. He is barely getting around the screen. It makes him actually pretty frustrating to play, at least for me. Maybe there's a lot of really cool techniques and stuff you can do with his bomb and his dragon and his shot, but for me, he's by far my least favorite character just because the movement speed is brutally slow. Psikyo is kind of like Raiden. Being able to micro through things isn't really that advantageous. Being able to macro around things is much, much better. So he seems to be the worst character in the game from what I've been able to see. I don't recommend him. And then the fourth character game is possibly my favorite. It's either him or Quaid. Ian, I remember his name. He rides a hell of a fast dragon. He has these kind of crappy homing shots, but his secret sauce is absolutely his dragon attack, because he can launch and relaunch it faster than anyone else. Like the frame recovery on it is hella fast, and he can move quickly too. So he can launch it, move back, grab it, launch it. He can just pummel shit with his attacks. And not surprisingly, he is the second highest scoring character of the game, most likely because, of my opinion, his ability to launch and relaunch his dragon. Such a cool character. I really like actually all the characters of the game other than Slow Turtle Man. So now we'll end the review with one of the most important things to discuss when it comes to Psikyo: difficulty. Psikyo are a mean set of bastards. They like to punish the player, and they like to punish the player hard. They like to kick your ass. And Psikyo are notorious for how difficult their shmups are. Some of their shmups are just absolutely batshit crazy with how hard they are, like Sengoku Blade and Gunbird 2. Luckily for the human players out there like myself, Dragon Blaze tones this down a little bit. Dragon Blaze is like, okay, buddies, we're gonna try to make something a little bit more accessible. And so my opinion, even though I haven't done a full clear or to all of the game, anything at this point, Dragon Blaze feels like an easier entry into the Psikyo library, but still perfectly challenging. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm just saying it's easier than what you come across. Probably a little bit harder than Gunbird, but definitely easier than something like Sengoku Blade or Gunbird 2. I think this game is a great entry point into the Psikyo library, and the difficulty curve is one reason for it, where, like I said, none of the stages in the beginning feel completely unrealistically brutal, and then you get stage 5, 6, and 7, definitely challenging, but not walls of hell like you get in some other Psikyo games. You get to stage 6 in Gunbird 2, and you're like, what the hell is going on? Just a wall of hell coming at you. What's also fun about Dragon Blaze is the speediness of the game. Brevity is a virtue in shmups, in my opinion, and Dragon Blaze definitely has that covered. You can get through the first loop in about 20 minutes, maybe even less, if you're doing all the technical bonuses and shit. And you can actually get to all of the games, so loop 1 and then you go right into loop 2, within a reasonable amount of time, 30 to 40 minutes, somewhere in there. I really like that, and it also makes the second loop system seem more digestible. Sometimes when you're playing those longer cave games and you start doing double loops of DFK or Resurrection and it seems like it's going on and on and on, I actually really like how snappy the Psikyo games, because it makes the two alls, even though they're crazy difficult, seem more attainable just because the marathon factor isn't as high. So overall, what are my conclusions of Dragon Blaze? One of my favorite Psikyo games, one of the best Psikyo games in my opinion, in terms of the scoring system, in terms of the polish, in terms of the level design, in terms of the character balance, in terms of the bullet patterns, in terms of the visuals. It's just got it all going on. The cool theme, the graphics. It's just the total package. One of the best Psikyo games ever made. Just don't play it on the Nintendo Switch. Play it on either the PS4 for a pretty laggy experience, on Steam for a less laggy experience, or we all know, RetroArch or MAME for the real deal, or get yourself a PCB, because Psikyo PCBs are not crazy expensive. Actually, the only real shmup PCB I have is Strikers 1945 2, which is a Psikyo PCB. I could absolutely see myself getting a Dragon Blaze PCB. Totally worth it. Love the game. Can't recommend it enough. Adios, everyone.
So thank you to the $5 patrons, 100, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Aaron Solis, Bo, Ben, Bettino, Blur STG, Borgie22, Brian Shiver, Chris Yusufovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Climby Coyote, Cook Some Soup, Corey Mark, Des Audio, Darren Griffin, Disco Stoslaya, DJ420, Praise It, Eric H, Fantaside, FCK, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Houseu, J, JLab, JBRPG, John Kelly, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, KZ, Khalil Reedy, Contain, Larridge, Malaise, Matthew Dergish, Maz, Megadeth 859, Minung, Mechalin, Michael Stum, Mitchell Y, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Psycho Blizzard, Rattlecat, Raoul, Real Skeen, Riff Mason, Rolf015, Sarah, Scanline City, Seesaw SDG, 7 Overdose, Shmup Junkie, Sarah Pong, Steve Fiction, The Boot Rex, The Dirty Screech, The N1, The Old Bensta, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight EX, Utakoi Roots, Wabby Legs, Bog Hog, and Utakaya. Thanks for watching.